Welcome back to another reading out of the Passion Translation. This time we will be reading out of the book of Matthew, actually finishing it up because we're going to start in chapter 24 and go all the way through chapter 28, which is the last chapter in the book. Again, in the Passion Translation, there are a ton of footnotes, so be sure to watch for those if you're watching on Facebook in the comment section of this video, I should say. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to watch for those in a separate post. But for now, let's go ahead and get straight into our reading. Again, Matthew 24 through 28 is what we are getting into today. Chapter 24. As Jesus was leaving the temple courts, his disciples came to him and pointed out the beautiful aspects of the architecture of the temple structures. And Jesus turned to them and said, "Take a good look at all these things, for I'm telling you, there will not be one stone left upon another. It will all be leveled." Later, when they arrived at the Mount of Olives, his disciples came privately to where he was sitting and said, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what supernatural sign should we expect to signal your coming and the completion of this age?" Jesus answered, "At that time, deception will run rampant, so beware that you are not fooled. For many will appear on the scene claiming my authority or saying about themselves, 'I am God's anointed,' and they will lead many astray. You will hear of wars nearby and revolutions on every side, with more rumors of wars to come. Don't panic or give in to your fears, for the breaking apart of the world's systems is destined to happen. But it won't yet be the end. It will still be unfolding. Nations will go to war against each other and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be terrible earthquakes, seismic events of epic proportion, horrible epidemics, and famines in place after place. This is how the first contractions and birth pains of the new age will begin. You can expect to be persecuted, even killed, for you will be hated by all the nations because of your love for me. Then many will stop following me and fall away, and they will betray one another and hate one another. And many lying prophets will arise, deceiving multitudes and leading them away from the path of truth. There will be such an increase of sin and lawlessness that those whose hearts once burned with passion for God and others will grow cold. But keep your hope to the end, and you will experience life and deliverance. Yet through it all, this joyful assurance of the realm of heaven's kingdom will be proclaimed all over the world, providing every nation with a demonstration of the reality of God. And after this, the end of the age will arrive. When you witness what Daniel prophesied, the disgusting destroyer taking its stand in the holy place, let the reader learn, then those in the land of Judah must escape to the higher ground. On that day, if you happen to be outside, don't go back inside to gather belongings. And if you're working out in the field, don't run back home to get a coat. It will be especially hard for pregnant women and for those nursing their babies in those days. So pray that your escape will not be during the winter months or on a Sabbath. For this will be a time of great misery beyond the magnitude of anything the world has ever seen or ever will see. Unless God limited those days, no one would escape. But because of his love for those chosen to be his, he will shorten that time of trouble. And you will hear reports from some saying, 'Look, he has returned. The Messiah is over here,' or 'The Messiah is over there.' Don't believe it, for there will be impostors falsely claiming to be God's anointed one, and false prophets will arise to perform miracle signs to lead astray, if possible, those God has chosen to be his. Remember this, for I prophesy it will happen. So if someone says to you, 'Look, the anointed one has returned, he's in the desert,' don't go chasing after him. Or if they say to you, 'Look, he's here in our house,' don't believe it. The appearing of the Son of Man will burst forth with the brightness of a lightning strike that shines from the one end of the sky to the other, illuminating the earth. How do birds of prey know where the dead body is? They just know instinctively, and so you will know when I appear. Then immediately this is what will take place. The sun will be darkened and the moon give no light. The stars will fall from the sky and all the cosmic powers will be shaken. Then the sign announcing the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn over him. And they will see the Son of Man appearing in the clouds of heaven, revealed with mighty power, great splendor and glory. And he will send his messengers with the loud blast of the trumpet, and with a great voice they will gather his beloved chosen ones by the four winds from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn the lesson from the parable of the fig tree. When spring arrives and it sends out its tender branches and sprouts leaves, you will know that ripe fruit is soon to appear. So it will be with you, for when you observe all these things taking place, you will know that he is near, even at the door. I assure you, the end of this age will not come until all I have spoken comes to pass. The earth and sky will wear out and fade away before one word I speak loses its power or fails to accomplish its purpose. Concerning that day and exact hour, no one knows when it will arrive, not even the angels of heaven, only the Father knows. For it will be exactly like it was in the days of Noah when the Son of Man appears. Before the flood, people lived their lives eating, drinking, marrying, and having children. They didn't realize the end was near until Noah entered the ark. And then suddenly the flood came and took them all away in judgment. It will happen the same way when the Son of Man appears. At that time, 2 men will be working on the farm. One will be taken away in judgment, the other left. 2 women will be grinding grain. One will be taken away in judgment, the other left. This is why you must stay alert, because no one knows the day your Lord will come. But realize this, if a homeowner had known what time of night the burglar would come to rob his house, he would have been alert and ready and not let his house be robbed. So always be alert, ready, and prepared, because at an hour when you're not expecting him, the Son of Man will come. Who is the one qualified to oversee the master's house? He will be a reliable servant who is wise and faithful, one he can depend on. The master will want to give him the responsibility of overseeing others in his house, for his servant will lead them well and give them food at the right time. What joy and blessing will come to that faithful servant when the master comes home to find him serving with excellence. I can promise you, the master will raise him up and put him in charge of all that he owns. But the evil servant says in his heart, my master delays his coming, and who knows when he will return. And because of the delay, the servant mistreats those in his master's household. Instead of caring for the ones he was appointed to serve, he abuses the other servants and gives himself over to eating and drinking with drunkards. Let me tell you what will happen to him. His master will suddenly return at a time that surprises him, and he will remove the abusive, selfish servant from his position of trust. And the master will cut him in two and assign him to the place of great sorrow and anguish, along with all the other pretenders and unbelievers. Chapter 25. At the time my coming draws near, heaven's kingdom realm can be compared to 10 maidens who took their oil lamps and went outside to meet the bridegroom and his bride. 5 of them were foolish and ill-prepared, for they took no extra oil for their lamps. 5 of them were wise and sensible, for they took flasks of olive oil with their lamps. When the bridegroom didn't come when they expected, they all grew drowsy and fell asleep. Then suddenly, in the middle of the night, they were awakened by the shout of, "Get up! The bridegroom is here! Come out and have an encounter with him!" So all the girls got up and trimmed their lamps, but the foolish ones were running out of oil. So they said to the 5 wise ones, "Share your oil with us, because our lamps are going out." "We can't," they replied. "We don't have enough for all of us. You'll have to go and buy some for yourselves." While the 5 girls were out buying oil, the bridegroom appeared. Those who were ready and waiting were escorted inside with him and the wedding party to enjoy the feast. And then the door was locked. Later, the 5 foolish girls came running up to the door and pleaded, "Lord, Lord, let us come in." But he called back, "Go away. Do I know you? I can assure you, I don't even know you." That is the reason you should always stay awake and be alert, because you don't know the day or hour when the bridegroom will appear. Again, heaven's kingdom realm is like the wealthy man who went on a long journey and summoned all his trusted servants and assigned his financial management over to them. Before he left on his journey, he entrusted a bag of 5,000 gold coins to one of his servants, to another a bag of 2,000 gold coins, and to the third a bag of 1,000 gold coins, each according to his ability to manage. The one entrusted with 5,000 gold coins immediately went out and traded with the money, and he doubled his investment. In the same way, the one who was entrusted with 2,000 gold coins traded with the sum and likewise doubled his investment. But the one who had been entrusted with 1,000 gold coins dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After much time had passed, the master returned to settle accounts with his servants. The one who was entrusted with 5,000 gold coins came and brought 10,000, saying, "See, I have doubled your money." Commending his servant, the master replied, "You have done well, and proven yourself to be my loyal and trustworthy servant. Because you have been a faithful steward to manage a small sum, now I will put you in charge of much, much more. You will experience the delight of your master, who will say to you, 'Come celebrate with me.'" Then the one who had been entrusted with 2,000 gold coins came in and said, "See, my master, I have doubled what you have entrusted to me." Commending his servant, the master replied, "You have done well, and proven yourself to be my loyal and trustworthy servant. Because you were faithful to manage a small sum, now I will put you in charge of much, much more. You will experience the delight of your master, who will say to you, 'Come celebrate with me.'" Then the one who had been entrusted with 1,000 gold coins came to his master and said, "Look, sir, I know that you are a hard man to please, and you're a shrewd and ruthless businessman who grows rich on the backs of others. I was afraid of you, so I went and hid your money and buried it in the ground. But here it is. Take it. It's yours." Angered by what he had heard, the master said to him, "You're an untrustworthy and lazy servant. If you knew I was a shrewd and ruthless businessman who always makes a profit, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? Then I would have received it all back with interest when I returned. But because you were unfaithful, I will take the 1,000 gold coins and give them to the one who has 10,000. For the one who has will be given more until he overflows with abundance, and the one with hardly anything, even what little he has, will be taken from him." Then the master said to his other servants, "Now throw that good-for-nothing servant far away from me into the outer darkness, where there will be great misery and anguish." When the Son of Man appears in his majestic glory with all his angels by his side, he will take his seat on his throne of splendor, and all the nations will be gathered together before him. And like a shepherd who separates the sheep from the goats, he will separate all the people. The sheep he will put on his right side, and the goats on his left. Then the king will turn to those on his right and say, "You have a special place in my Father's heart. Come and experience the full inheritance of the kingdom realm that has been destined for you from before the foundation of the world. For when you saw me hungry, you fed me. When you found me thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I had no place to stay, you invited me in. And when I was poorly clothed, you covered me. When I was sick, you tenderly cared for me. And when I was in prison, you visited me." Then the godly will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty and give you food and something to drink? When did we see you with no place to stay and invite you in? When did we see you poorly clothed and cover you? When did we see you sick and tenderly care for you, or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Don't you know? When you cared for one of the least important of these, my little ones, my true brothers and sisters, you demonstrated love for me." Then to those on his left, the king will say, "Leave me, for you are under the curse of eternal fire that has been destined for the devil and all his demons. For when you saw me hungry, you refused to give me food, and when you saw me thirsty, you refused to give me something to drink. I had no place to stay, and you refused to take me in as your guest. When you saw me poorly clothed, you closed your hearts and would not cover me. When you saw that I was sick, you didn't lift a finger to help me, and when I was imprisoned, you never came to visit me." And then those on his left will say, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty and not give you food and something to drink? When did we see you homeless or poorly clothed? When did we see you sick and not help you, or in prison and not visit you?" Then he will answer them, "Don't you know? When you refused to help one of the least important among these, my little ones, my true brothers and sisters, you refused to help and honor me." And they will depart from his presence and go into eternal punishment. But the godly and beloved sheep will enter into eternal bliss. Chapter 26. After Jesus had completed his teachings, he said to his disciples, "You know that the feast of the Passover begins in 2 more days. That's when the Son of Man is to be betrayed and handed over to be crucified." Meanwhile, the prominent priests and religious leaders of the nation were gathered in the palace of the high priest Caiaphas. That's when they made their decision to secretly have Jesus captured and killed. But they all agreed, "We can't do this during the Passover celebrations, or we could have a riot on our hands." Then Jesus went to Bethany, to the home of Simon, a man Jesus had healed of leprosy. A woman came into the house holding an alabaster flask filled with fragrant and expensive oil. She walked right up to Jesus, and in a loving gesture of devotion, she poured out the costly oil, and it cascaded over his head as he was at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were offended. "What a total waste," they grumbled. "We could have sold it for a great deal of money and given it to the poor." Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Why are you critical of this woman? She has done a beautiful act of kindness for me. You will always have someone poor whom you can help, but you will not always have me. When she poured the fragrant oil over me, she was preparing my body for burial. I promise you that as this wonderful gospel spreads all over the world, the story of her lavish devotion to me, will also be mentioned in memory of her." One of the 12 disciples, Judas the locksmith, went to the leading priests and said, "How much are you willing to pay me to betray Jesus into your hands?" They agreed to pay him 30 silver coins. Immediately, Judas began to scheme and look for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of Passover, the day when any bread made with yeast was removed from every Jewish home, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where should we prepare the Passover meal for you?" He answered them, "My heart longs with great desire to eat this Passover meal with you. Go into Jerusalem, and you will encounter a man. Tell him that the teacher says, 'My appointed time is near. I am coming to your home to eat the Passover meal with my disciples.'" The disciples did as Jesus had instructed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When evening came, he took his place at the table and dined with the 12. While they were eating, Jesus spoke up and said, "One of you is about to betray me." Feeling deeply hurt by these words, one after another asked him, "You don't mean me, do you?" He answered, "It is one who has shared meals with me as an intimate friend. All that was prophesied of me will take place, but how miserable it will be for the one who betrayed the Son of Man. It would be far better for him if he had never been born." Then finally Judas, the traitor, spoke up and asked him, "Teacher, perhaps it is I?" Jesus answered, "You said it." As they ate, Jesus took the bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to his disciples. He said to them, "This is my body, eat it." Then taking the cup of wine and giving praises to the Father, he entered into covenant with them, saying, "This is my blood. Each of you must drink it in fulfillment of my covenant. For this is the blood that seals the new covenant. It will be poured out for many for the complete forgiveness of sins. The next time we drink this, I will be with you, and we will drink it together with a new understanding in the kingdom realm of my Father." Then they sang a psalm and left for the Mount of Olives. Along the way, Jesus said to them, "Before the night is over, you will all desert me. This will fulfill the prophecy of the scripture that says, 'I will strike down the shepherd, and all the sheep will scatter far and wide.' But after I am risen, I will go ahead of you to Galilee, and will meet you there." Then Peter spoke up and said, "Even if all the rest lose their faith and fall away, I will still be beside you, Jesus." "Are you sure, Peter?" Jesus said. "In fact, before the rooster crows a few hours from now, you will have denied me 3 times. Peter replied, "I absolutely will never deny you, even if I have to die with you." And all the others said the same thing. Then Jesus led his disciples to an orchard called the Oil Press. He told them, "Sit here while I go and pray over there." He took Peter, Jacob, and John with him. However, an intense feeling of great sorrow plunged his soul into deep sorrow and agony. And he said to them, "My heart is overwhelmed and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me." Then he walked a short distance away, and overcome with grief, he threw himself face down on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if there is any way you can deliver me from this suffering, please take it from me. Yet what I want is not important, for I only desire to fulfill your plan for me." Then an angel from heaven appeared to strengthen him. Later he came back to his 3 disciples and found them all sound asleep. He awakened Peter and said to him, "Do you lack the strength to stay awake with me for even just an hour? Keep alert and pray that you'll be spared from this time of testing. You should have learned by now that your spirit is eager enough, but your humanity is weak." Then he left them for a second time to pray in solitude. He said to God, "My Father, if there is not a way that you can deliver me from this suffering, then your will must be done." He came back to the disciples and found them sound asleep, for they couldn't keep their eyes open. So he left them and went away to pray the same prayer for the 3rd time. When he returned again to his disciples, he awoke them, saying, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Don't you know the hour has come for the Son of Man to be handed over to the authority of sinful men? Get up and let's go, for the betrayer has arrived." At that moment, Judas, his once trusted disciple, appeared, along with a large crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent to arrest Jesus by order of the ruling priests and Jewish religious leaders. Now Judas, the traitor, had arranged to give them a signal that would identify Jesus, for he had told them, "Jesus is the one whom I will kiss, so grab him." Judas quickly stepped up to Jesus and said, "Shalom, Rabbi," and he kissed him on both cheeks. "My beloved friend," Jesus said, "is this why you've come?" Then the armed men seized Jesus to arrest him, but one of the disciples pulled out a dagger and swung it at the servant of the high priest, slashing off his ear. Jesus said to him, "Put your dagger away, for all those who embrace violence will die by violence. Don't you realize that I could ask my heavenly Father for angels to come at any time to deliver me? And instantly he would answer me by sending 12 armies of the angelic host to come and protect us. But that would thwart the prophetic plan of God, for it has been written that it would happen this way." Then Jesus turned to the mob and said, "Why would you arrest me with swords and clubs as though I were an outlaw? Day after day I sat in the temple courts with you, teaching the people, yet you didn't arrest me. But all of this fulfills the prophecies of the scriptures." At that point, all of his disciples ran away and abandoned him. Those who arrested Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the chief priest, and to a meeting where the religious scholars and the Supreme Jewish Council were already assembled. Now Peter had followed the mob from a distance all the way to the chief priest's courtyard, and after entering, he sat with the servants of the chief priest who had gathered there, waiting to see how things would unfold. The chief priests and the entire Supreme Jewish Council of leaders were doing their best to find false charges that they could bring against Jesus because they were looking for a reason to put him to death. Many false witnesses came forward, but the evidence could not be corroborated. Finally, 2 men came forward and declared, "This man said, 'I can destroy God's temple and build it again in 3 days.'" Then the chief priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Have you nothing to say about these allegations? Is what they're saying about you true?" But Jesus remained silent before them. So the chief priest said to him, "I charge you under oath, in the name of the living God, tell us once and for all if you are the anointed Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus answered him, "You just said it yourself, and more than that, you are about to see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of God, the Almighty. And one day you will also see the Son of Man coming in the heavenly clouds." This infuriated the chief priest, and as an act of outrage, he tore his robe and shouted, "What blasphemy! No more witnesses are needed for you heard this grievous blasphemy." Turning to the council, he said, "Now what is your verdict?" "He's guilty and deserves the death penalty," they answered. Then they spat on his face and slapped him. Others struck him over and over with their fists. Then they taunted him by saying, "O anointed one, prophesy to us. Tell us which one of us is about to hit you next." Meanwhile, Peter was still sitting outside in the courtyard when a servant girl came up to him and said, "I recognize you. You were with Jesus the Galilean." In front of everyone, Peter denied it and said, "I don't have a clue what you're talking about." Later, as he stood near the gateway of the courtyard, another servant girl noticed him and said, "I know this man is a follower of Jesus the Nazarite." or Nazarene. Once again, Peter denied it, and with an oath he said, I tell you, I don't know the man. A short time later, those standing nearby approached Peter and said, we know you're one of his disciples. We can tell by your speech. Your Galilean accent gives you away. Peter denied it, and using profanity, he said, I don't know the man. At that very moment, the sound of a crowing rooster pierced the night. Then Peter remembered the prophecy of Jesus. Before the rooster crows, you will have denied me 3 times. With a shattered heart, Peter went out of the courtyard, sobbing with bitter tears. Chapter 27. Before dawn that morning, all the chief priests and religious leaders resolved to take action against Jesus and decided that he should be executed. So they bound him with chains and led him away to Pilate, the Roman governor. Now, when Judas the betrayer saw that Jesus had been sentenced to death, remorse filled his heart. He returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and religious leaders, saying, I have sinned because I have betrayed an innocent man. They replied, why are you bothering us? That's your problem. Then Judas flung the silver coins inside the temple and went out and hanged himself. The chief priest, picking up the pieces of silver, said, we can't keep this, for it's unlawful to put blood money into the temple treasury. So after some deliberation, they decided to purchase the potter's field of clay to use as a cemetery for burying strangers. That's why that land has been called the Field of Blood. This fulfilled the prophecy of Zechariah. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price at which he was valued by the people of Israel, the price of a precious man. And with the silver they bought the potter's field, as the Lord directed. As Jesus stood in front of the Roman governor, Pilate asked him, so you are really the king of Jews? And Jesus answered, you have just spoken it. Then he was slandered and accused by the chief priests and religious leaders, but he remained silent. Pilate said, don't you hear these allegations? But Jesus offered no defense to any of the charges, much to the great astonishment of Pilate. Now, every year at Passover, it was the custom of the governor to pardon a prisoner and release him to the people, anyone they wanted. And at that time, Pilate was holding in custody a notorious criminal named Jesus Barabbas. So as the crowds of people assembled outside of Pilate's residence, he went out and offered them a choice. He asked them, who would you want me to release to you today? Jesus who is called Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Anointed One? Now, Pilate was fully aware that the religious leaders had handed Jesus over to him because of their bitter jealousy. Just then, as Pilate was presiding over the tribunal, his wife sent him an urgent message. Don't harm that holy man, for I suffered a horrible nightmare last night about him. Meanwhile, the chief priests and the religious leaders were inciting the crowd to ask for Barabbas to be freed and to have Jesus killed. So Pilate asked them again, which of the 2 men would you like me to release for you? They shouted, Barabbas! Pilate asked them, then what would you have me to do with Jesus who is called the Anointed One? They all shouted back, crucify him! Why? Pilate asked. What has he done wrong? But they kept shouting out, crucify him! When Pilate realized that a riot was about to break out and that it was useless to try to reason with the crowd, he sent for a basin of water. After washing his hands in front of the people, he said, I am innocent of the blood of this righteous man. The responsibility for his death is now yours. And the crowd replied, let his blood be on us and on our children. So he released Barabbas to the people. He ordered that Jesus be beaten with a whip made of leather straps embedded with metal and afterward be crucified. Then the guards took him into their military compound where a detachment of nearly 600 soldiers surrounded him. They stripped off his clothing and placed a scarlet robe on him to make fun of him. Then they braided a crown of thorns and set it on his head. After placing a reed staff in his right hand, they knelt down before him and irreverently mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! Then they spat in his face and took the reed staff from his hand and hit him repeatedly on his head, driving the crown of thorns deep into his brow. When they finished ridiculing him, they took off the scarlet robe and put his own clothes back on him and led him away to be crucified. And as they came out of the city, they stopped an African man named Simon from Libya and compelled him to carry the cross for Jesus. They brought Jesus to Golgotha, which means Skull Hill. And there the soldiers offered him a mild painkiller, a drink of wine mixed with gall. But after tasting it, he refused to drink it. Then they crucified Jesus, nailing his hands and feet to the cross. The soldiers divided his clothing among themselves by rolling dice to see who would win them. And the soldiers stood there to watch what would happen and to keep guard over him. Above his head they placed a sign that read, This is Jesus of Nazareth, King of Israel. 2 criminals were also crucified with Jesus, one on each side of him. And those who passed by shook their heads and spitefully ridiculed him, saying, We heard you boast that you could destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Why don't you save yourself now? If you're really God's son, come down from the cross. Even the ruling priests with the Jewish scholars and religious leaders joined in the mockery and kept on saying, He saved others, but he can't even save himself. Israel's king is he? He should pull out the nails and come down from the cross right now. Then we'll believe in him. He says, He puts all his trust in God, so let's see if it's true and see if God really wants to rescue his favorite son. Even the two criminals who were crucified with him began to taunt him, hurling their insults on him. For 3 hours, beginning at noon, darkness came over the earth. And at 3 o'clock, Jesus shouted with a mighty voice in Aramaic, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you deserted me? Some who were standing near the cross misunderstood and said, He's calling for Elijah. One bystander ran and got a sponge, soaked it with sour wine, then put it on a stick and held it up for Jesus to drink. But the rest said, Leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to rescue him. Jesus passionately cried out, took his last breath, and gave up his spirit. At that moment, the veil in the Holy of Holies was torn in two from the top to the bottom. The earth shook violently, rocks were split apart, and graves were opened. Then many of the holy ones who had died were brought back to life and came out of their graves. And after Jesus' resurrection, they were plainly seen by many people walking in Jerusalem. Now, when the Roman military officers and his soldiers witnessed what was happening and felt the powerful earthquake, they were extremely terrified. They said, There is no doubt this man was the Son of God. Watching from a distance were many of the women who had followed him from Galilee and given him support. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jacob and Joseph, and the mother of Jacob and John. At the end of the day, a wealthy man named Joseph, a follower of Jesus from the village of Ramah, approached Pilate and asked to have custody of the body of Jesus. So Pilate consented and ordered that the body be given to him. Then Joseph wrapped the body in a shroud of fine linen and placed it in his own unused tomb, which had only recently been cut into the rock. They rolled a large stone to seal the entrance of the tomb and left. Sitting across from the tomb were Mary Magdalene and the other Marys, watching all that took place. The next day, the day after preparation day for Passover, and the chief priests and the Pharisees went together to Pilate. They said to him, Our master, we remember that this impostor claimed that he would rise from the dead after 3 days. So please, order the tomb to be sealed until after the 3rd day. Seal it so that his disciples can't come and steal the corpse and tell people he rose from the dead. Then the last deception would be worse than the first. I will send soldiers to guard the tomb, Pilate replied. Go with them and make the tomb as secure as possible. So they left and sealed the stone, and Pilate's soldiers secured the tomb. Chapter 28. After the Sabbath ended at the first light of dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to take a look at the tomb. Suddenly the earth shook violently beneath their feet as the angel of the Lord Jehovah descended from heaven. Lightning flashed around him, and his robe was dazzling white. The guards were stunned and terrified, lying motionless like dead men. Then the angel walked up to the tomb, rolled away the stone, and sat on top of it. The women were breathless and terrified until the angel said to them, There's no reason to be afraid. I know you're here looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He has risen victoriously, just as he said. Come inside the tomb and see the place where our Lord was lying. Then run and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. I give you his message. I am going ahead of you in Galilee, and you will see me there. They rushed quickly to tell his disciples, and their hearts were deep in wonder and filled with great joy. Along the way, Jesus suddenly appeared in front of them and said, Rejoice! They were so overwhelmed by seeing him that they bowed down and grasped his feet in adoring worship. Then Jesus said to them, Throw off all your fears. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. They will find me there. After the women left the tomb, a few of the guards went into Jerusalem and told the chief priests everything they had seen and heard. So the chief priests called a meeting with all the religious leaders and came up with a plan. They bribed the guards with a large sum of money and told them, Tell everyone, while we were asleep, his disciples came at night and stole his body. If Pilate finds out about this, don't worry, we'll make sure you don't get blamed. So they took the money and did as they were told. That is why the story of the guards is still circulating among the Jews to this day. Meanwhile, the 11 disciples heard the wonderful news from the women and left for Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had arranged to meet them. The moment they saw him, they worshipped him, but some still had lingering doubts. Then Jesus came close to them and said, All the authority of the universe has been given to me. Now wherever you go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to faithfully follow all that I have commanded you, and never forget that I am with you every day, even to the completion of this age. And that was our reading for today, Matthew chapters 24 through 28. Thank you so much for hanging out and reading along, listening along. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to watch for the comments that will have your footnotes in them. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to watch for a separate post that will have those footnotes. Lots and lots of, probably more than one post, honestly, because there's lots and lots of footnotes. But again, thank you so much for following along. We will see you next time for our next reading. But for now, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Blessings.